Welcome to SOGCast number 27. My name is John Stryker Meyer. I'll be your host today. This production is brought to you courtesy of Jocko Willing Productions and his creative staff, and we thank them for making these stories possible about the 8-year secret war fought during the Vietnam War by Green Berets across the fence. They are frantically beating me back to consciousness, pouring water over my head. Okay, I'm back. I try to get up. My legs don't work. From the knees down, my fatigue pants are shredded. I'm bleeding. One of the men, Kwang, starts smearing gelatinized rice on my legs, arms, face, and chest. Web gear and what is left of my survival vest are lying on the ground in bloody tatters, along with the Car 15. It's bent where the barrel meets the receiver, and the bolt can't be pulled back. Locke orders a scout to bury the car. As I'm flying through the air instantly, I'm looking up into the jungle canopy, seeing a muddled light stream through a haze of cordite. It's over. You saw it coming and couldn't get out of the way. Lower, below me, the concussion lifts me from the ground, pushing me through the air. My feet are over my head. Green tracers crack around me like lady finger firecrackers. That tree is upside down and moving fast. This is all wrong. Focus, or you'll miss the moment of your death. I hear myself say, I can't breathe. I feel like I'm drowning. This is a passage from the book Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, and today we're honored to have as our guest on SOGcast number 27, Lynne M. Black Jr. Lynne, welcome to the show, brother.
Thank you, John.
It took us a while to get you here, but you're here.
Yeah.
And I just got to say, we're at the mark. This is being recorded in the middle of June of 2022. And since Jocko first doing interviews on SOG, and we've done our SOGcast, I have to, in all modesty, say the most requested person to be interviewed would be Lynne M. Black Jr.
Low expectations.
You just never know, do you?
No, you don't.
And so the passage that I'm reading again is from Lynne's book, Whiskey Foxtrot Tango, that came out years ago. And there are several stories in it, but the most compelling of which was a mission that was October 5th, 1968. And even I, upon relearning, learned that mission was in Oscar 8, yep. A fact that somehow I had missed when I wrote my book on the story. But you didn't. You did a good job. And the book is just, the thing I like about it, it's so unique, it's like more of a random, you telling your stories, and not only does it capture like the war stories, but there's a lot of that interchange between yourself, your team members, and there's some classic lines. And so what we're referring to here is for our first-time viewers or listeners is that on October 5th, a 9-man recon team, Spike Team Alabama, was inserted into a target. They had a new team leader who put the team on the ground, and on that team, Lynne Black was at that time the 1-2, who was the radio operator. And they didn't realize it, but they landed in an area heavily populated with an NVA, a North Vietnamese Army enemy force in Laos that at the time we thought was 3,000 to 5,000 enemy soldiers who, once they heard about the team on the ground, came after that team with a vengeance. The battle was an ongoing a battle all day. And during the 8-year secret war, in my humble opinion, this is one of the top 5 stories in terms of team, integrity, leadership against incredible odds, including everything from having a hard time coordinating assets to the enemy being skilled at deceiving our aircraft in and destroying them and killing personnel. And in the end, the 9-man team, 6 survived, actually got out of that target. And at the end, we'll talk a little bit more about a final wrap-up on the total casualty count, which has a couple unique spin-offs even there. There's nothing about this story that isn't unique. So welcome to the show. And what you and I have talked about this before, but never for the camera. But what was that moment? Like, first of all, when you said grenade, I always thought it might be a traditional Chicom that would be shrapnel. No. But in rereading your book these past few days, it was a concussion grenade, and why?
Yeah, so the we've all seen it from World War II movies, the grenades that the Germans had.
Potato mashers.
Which they called potato mashers.
Yeah.
Well, the NVA had a similar grenade, but it was all made out of wood, and they were concussion grenades. The only shrapnel from them would be the wood itself. There wasn't any metal. Yeah. And so that's what hit me in the side of the head, and I watched it as it dropped to the ground at my feet. And I thought to myself at the time, I remember, this is going to hurt, because I couldn't, you can't get out of the way, and it blew me up.
Literally,
yeah,
off your feet.
Yeah.
As you explained,
put my feet over my head and threw me into a big tree that I happened to be next to, and rendered me unconscious for a while.
You're more or less flying through the air without the greatest of ease.
Yeah. Smoking.
You literally.
Yeah.
Because when you woke up, the part about your pants and everything else.
Oh, yeah, it shredded because it went off, of course, as it hit the ground, and it just shredded my pants from about the knees down and blew all my gear up over the top of my head.
Oh,
yeah,
gosh.
Yeah, just kind of shredded everything, and I was just, it was a heavy concussion.
Oh, indeed.
Yeah.
And was that vest one of the first stylized Lynne black vests?
Yes, it was actually a
and
fishing.
The NVA ruined it.
Yeah.
Ruined it.
It was a fly fishing vest.
Oh, is that what it was?
Yeah.
I remember you working on those.
Yeah.
We got various pictures at different stages.
Yeah.
But now they're highly sought after.
I know. That's amazing, isn't it? They're now called 1-0 vests. Yeah.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
That's where I kept all the survival gear and the ERC-10 and all of that stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
So at what led to this moment in that day, October 5th, was ST Alabama was inserted. You were inserted on a second helicopter, which when you went in, you took enemy fire.
Right.
And you, because you had served previously a tour of duty in Vietnam, in South Vietnam with 173rd Airborne with your brother, you had come up against our communist friends down south.
Yeah.
And you also knew that if you saw an NVA flag flying, there had to be estimated enemy strength of, a battalion or a regiment or what?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah. If there was a flag, there was at least 300 or 400 guys that were in the immediate area. And the LZ, I think, was the equivalent of their parade field,
Oh, no, is that right?
Yeah, so we knew, it was going to be a good landing because it was a well-trod area. Yeah.
See, I forgot that part, too.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you're on the ground, yourself, Cowboy, who was the interpreter, and we're talking Con, and his nickname was Cowboy. And he was... Con. Yes, and he turned to you. You turned to the 1-0, who was a newly appointed 1-0,
right?
Who was appointed the team leader because of rank,
right?
Not because of experience on the ground.
Correct.
In prairie fire, which is the code name for layouts at that time in October of '68, and they all said, "Hey, there's buku enemy here. Let's get out of here."
Yeah.
And was the second helicopter shot down after it dropped you off, or was there a King B shot down soon thereafter?
It was afterwards. The one that we were on took a tremendous amount of hits. It was being hit as we were coming in for the landing.
Okay.
Yeah, and we got off anyway because the other half of the team was already on the ground. On the ground, we weren't going to leave them there.
And see, just for our audience again, under any ordinary circumstance, any team that took enemy fire on an insertion, because it's a clandestine infiltration.
Yeah, game's up.
Yeah, game's up.
Yeah.
It's time to go home.
Yeah.
But in this case, because of the inexperienced team leader,
Right.
he goes, no, we're here to stay.
Right.
There's some language that he had. But anyways, he then he committed the mortal sin of Recon.
Yeah.
He marched the team down the trail.
Yeah, absolutely. Worst thing you can do. Absolutely. That's the number one rule. You do not walk on trails.
Never.
That's where the enemy walks. You walk in the undergrowth, right?
That's why our golden rule was don't ever walk on trails. You can cross them.
You can cross them. You can take pictures of footprints.
Yeah.
You can lay anti-personnel mines on them.
Blow up trucks on them.
Booby trap the crap out of them. Bomb them. Yeah, but you don't walk on them.
Well, anyways, so after you go down that trail, the trail then lowers. You kind of go downhill, and then on the right you find, because you've been on the ground for a little bit, and then you moved on the trail. I forget the trail descended, but you eventually came into explain a little bit about that.
Yeah, so
topology.
So the trail kind of goes down, and there's a hill to our right, and another rise to our left. So we're in another situation that you don't do. Okay. When you know the enemy is all around you, you get to high ground, not low ground.
Yeah.
Because the enemy then was on both sides of us on high ground, and that's when they sprung the ambush. When we walked into that perfect position for them to kill us.
Yeah. So you're on the trail, and you walk into what would called an L-shaped ambush. So the top part of the L is you're walking parallel to it.
Right.
At the bottom is an L that takes a 90-degree turn.
Correct.
You walk into it, and unbeknownst to you and the team, there's at least 50 NVA up there on that little rise.
Right.
And they know you're coming. You don't know they're there.
Right.
And I know that your recon senses are hyper. And this is your first mission, your first SOG
My first
recon
SOG mission, yeah.
Across the fence, other than practice.
Yeah, other than the training mission, with Tim Schaff,
Which we'll get back to a little bit later.
Yeah, which was a little weird in itself, yeah.
Well, let's make this really easy. If we have any stories that aren't unique or weird, we're not going to deal with them today.
Oh, okay.
Because we're dealing strictly with the prerequisite. This is the Lynne genre here.
So if we're not going to deal with weird, this conversation's over?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
There's so many scenarios here.
Yeah.
And then, so getting back to that fateful day, again, quoting from the well-written book, Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, RT Alabama was ambushed at approximately 0800 hours, October 5th, 1968, at coordinates Yankee Charlie 561692. Our point man, was hit multiple times in the chest and lower body. In that same instant, 3 rounds penetrated our 1-0 team leader's head. Now, this is the same team leader that made the mistake of walking down the trail.
Right.
Cowboy, the interpreter, was behind stride and took an RPD, which is a machine gun, round below his left shoulder. I was behind Cowboy when he went down. The assistant team leader, the 1-1, went down at the same time. I thought he was hit as well. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
That moment in time.
We actually, I thought we were dead, all of us, that we'd all be greased right there in that hole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you know? I assume some of the fact that your team had drilled on returning fire.
Right.
That you forced the 50 on the L-shaped ambush to at least put their heads down.
Right. So the first thing you do when you get into an ambush like that is full auto, and fire as close to the ground as possible in a fan in order to clear out the area. And you are trained to try to penetrate through that in order to break that ambush. But they had us on actually 3 sides.
3?
Yeah, and we, no matter which way we went, we were dead meat.
It's a real knocker's barrel.
Yeah, so we just formed up in a circle. We found out who was alive and who was dead, and stripped the bodies of the dead of weapons, ammunition, stuff like that, and any maps or intel that they had on them.
Right.
And carried on from there.
Yeah, because like you said, you yourself were thumbing the selector thrust, the Car 15, the single shot.
Right.
I began to pick them off. This is after the initial impact.
Yeah. Well, they knew they had us, so they stood up.
Really?
Yeah, and to our right, they just stood up on line, and so it was like shooting clay pigeons, you know.
Yeah, but the way you described it, you're on the receiving end of that.
Well, yeah, they're shooting back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're shooting single rounds at the time.
Right.
So I pushed the magazine button to replace that. Shredded vegetation roils in the air, punctuated by NVA green tracers searching out their targets, which would be you.
Yeah.
An NVA I shot a moment ago is getting up and pointing in my direction. Okay. My second magazine snaps into place, slapping the left side of the receiver. The Car 15 bolt slams forward as I rise the weapon, firing twice. Stay down, damn it. We got to break contact, I yell at the team. Continuing down the line, emptying magazine 2, the NVA fall like targets in a shooting gallery. Another line moves in behind them, taking their place. We're in a low spot. We got to get out of here.
Right.
So by that time, you're able, in your spare time, you're able to notify Covey that you're in deep doo-doo.
Yeah.
And Pat Watkins, a.k.a. Mandolin, was flying Covey that day. And Covey is the forward air controller for our first-time listeners, and the code name was Covey in the SOG and the Secret War. And it would be an Air Force 02 and flown by an Air Force pilot, and then in the right seat is a Green Beret with experience on SOG experience.
Usually 1-0s that have started Covey writing. Yeah.
Right. And that was a unique aspect of it because the Covey writer, with his experience, could relate to teams on the ground. And in this case, you knew Mandolin because he's back at FOB1 with us when we were there together.
Yep.
And on this occasion, the man you're talking to, you know him.
Yep.
And he's getting ready to kick in whatever he can do to get TAC air.
Yep.
Meanwhile, you're down there surviving. And how long did you stay in that little centric area before you're able to actually begin to move away from that? Because the second wave comes in on that damn ambush.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. So it can't be more than 5 minutes, okay, which is a lifetime.
Oh, yeah.
On the ground when people are shooting at you. And to be honest with you, I'm not sure. You kind of play out this who's alive, who's dead, who's wounded, how the hell do we get out of the situation routine. And once you get the team organized and you figure out what you have as far as assets on the ground, then you start figuring out how to get out of the situation. And we did everything that we were supposed to do in an ambush, you know, when you get ambushed. And we by our actions, we caused them to reduce fire and begin to change positions and not be as bold as they originally were. They stopped standing up, right? They did things like they'd lay on the ground and do that kind of stuff. They'd climb up in trees to shoot down on us.
You had snipers.
All that, yeah, that kind of stuff. So it gave us. We figured, okay, claymore time and all that, and get out of the hole. So you start figuring out which way you're going to go. And at the same time, you're on the radio going, Covey, Blackjack, over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're able to get some air cover fairly quick?
Not really.
Yeah, because you were there by yourself. For a
Yeah,
while.
because where the assets, the air cover assets, had been released and were on their way back out of the area. And so what Covey did was he was able to get air assets from other sources.
Yeah,
because ours were out of fuel and that kind of stuff.
Right, because the ride across South Vietnam into the AO,
Yeah.
drop you off,
Right.
and then they return back. That was all in progress.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's why, even worser,
Yeah.
you're out there. It's just now you're down 9 reduced to 7 at that point.
That's correct.
Because we thought you had 1 KI, but the assistant team leader, who will just call 1-1 for today,
Right.
he was on the ground praying
Yeah. Yep.
and never fired around for a
Never
day.
fired around. That's right.
But one of the things you had to do was to get out. So you pulled out a claymore. And again, going back to this book, there's just filled with amazing detail. You're talking about getting the claymore out, but then you're referring to the enemy. And we're going to put this claymore in the direction of these willing men from the north. The loving husband and the son-in-law who likes to grow his own vegetables. Fuck 'em all.
That's right. So because I had a first tour over there and got to know Vietnamese, right?
Yeah.
You're fighting people,
Yes.
other men, and they're just like you. Their husbands, their fathers, their uncles, so on and so forth. They eat, they live. Well, fuck them all. You're right. When they're shooting at you, everybody's fair game.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
And this is the side of communism we don't hear about today.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the reason why you pulled the claymore out was the claymores were the smoke of clearing. So you blasted the claymores and literally blew a hole in the
Right.
charging enemy forces,
Right.
big enough for you to yell, "Alabama up, follow me."
Mm-hmm.
The team moves through the path of carnage with our weapons on full auto while we assist our wounded. Online, this is what you get for screwing with one of the Black brothers.
That's
Now,
right.
you got to explain that just a little bit because we haven't gotten into that part yet. But
Okay. So on my, you want me to do that now?
yeah, please.
Okay. So on my first tour, I was there from May of 65 through July of 66 in the 173rd Airborne Brigade.
Right.
And my brother, one of my younger brothers, Hugh, was wounded by a mortar. And he was split from the hip down to the knee, clear to the bone, and broke all his ribs on one side and screwed him up pretty bad.
That's a long time healing.
Yeah. He spent a lot of time in Madigan Hospital here in Washington State. And when I got out of the service after that first tour, I was living in Hawaii, and I decided to go back in because during that first tour, even though I saw action, I never saw the enemy.
Isn't that amazing? Because that's something that when I say that, even in some of our combat, people go, "Wait, I don't understand what you just said." Kumbiak?
Well, you're fighting in the jungle, and
Triple canopy.
and we weren't fighting the North Vietnamese army. We were fighting the Viet Cong, and they were people who had come down from the north, and their job was to disrupt the American fighting machine. Okay,
Right.
and to disrupt the Vietnamese government.
And this was the first time the 173rd had come into the South Vietnam War.
Yeah, that's correct. We came off of Okinawa with the Marine Corps, and we were the first people, the first Army unit actually to be in Vietnam. And so my brother got hit. I was living in Hawaii and being an artist, doing sketches of people in bars for food and all that kind of good stuff. And one night I was sitting in a place called Duke Kahanamoku's, watching Frank Sinatra sing on the stage with the Rat Pack.
Yeah.
And I was watching this little black and white TV down behind the bar, and the bartender was a veteran also. And Walter Cronkite was talking about the war, and I said, "All right, screw this. They nailed my brother. I didn't see those sons of bitches." And Cronkite just said, "We're losing the war. I'm going back." And so the reason that I went back is I wanted to get even for what they did to my brother.
Indeed.
Yeah. And that was my whole purpose for the second and third tours.
Yes, indeed. So getting back to our day on the ground.
Yes.
As you go through, you blew the hole through the on-charging enemy troops. Mm-hmm. And then what's left of their ragged line sporadically returns fire on our small band. Cowboy stumbles and falls, having taken another round to his left side. He comes haltingly to his feet, giving the OK signal. Once seemingly through and past the NVA battle line, Locke, and Locke at this point is your team leader. He's the
0-1, yeah.
The 0-1
Right.
for Alabama. Collapses our online formation to inline and orders the team to go on single shot. The left side of Cowboy's shirt is soaked with blood. Blocked by impassable terrain on one side and NBA forces on the other, we work our way through the dense undergrowth back toward our point of insertion. So what were you thinking at that point? Hoping to get a possible exfil sooner than later?
Yeah, that, and it was steak
And
night
get
back
away?
at FOB1, and there was free beer and a steak, and it was time to go home.
Yeah, this is the best time you've been on the ground for maybe close to an hour.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How's it
The
going?
day's work is over. Yeah, and besides that, we're almost out of ammo.
So Locke he's really sharp,
He was excellent. Yeah.
just a great
Yeah.
counterpart.
Yeah.
We had our Sal and then Kwong.
Right.
And you had Locke. Of course, Doti Kwong was with you that day with Alabama before
Correct.
we kidnapped him
Yeah.
to Idaho a year later.
Yeah. Yeah.
But here's Locke's: don't fire randomly. Kill the enemy.
Right.
We continue maneuvering our way through the high, thick underbrush towards the primary. And all this is going on. Meanwhile, you're trying to get things in for attack air. Mm-hmm. And then there's a possibility. So while you're on the ground, being situational awareness, everything else that's going on, you're talking to Covey. Now,
Right.
Covey runs low on gas, so Mandolin leaves.
Mm-hmm.
The Covey rider, Mandolin, is replaced by Robert J. Spider Parks,
Right on.
former Idaho 1-0. And then you're now dealing with Spider. And you can, all these different scenarios that just keep coming up. Mm-hmm. At one point, Spider suggests, well, maybe we should get a bright light team to come into you to help you out. And, boy, your line of thinking, because the bright light at that time, throughout the 8 years of the Secret War, if a team was in trouble, a bright light would go in to theoretically help them or to get bodies out or for down pilots, things like that.
Yeah.
And so Spider suggests, hey, we should get a bright light to come down and help you guys.
Yeah.
And tell them your answer because it's classic, but it was right.
Yeah. Go ahead if you're going to read it.
No, you go.
I said no. No bright light, and we don't need another team on the ground. We got enough shit going on here. Right? Yeah, and that's basically it. It is. Usually a bright light team like that would be inserted behind the enemy that you're fighting in order to draw some of them off, and then try to maneuver around and join up so that you can all come out at roughly the same time when the helicopters came in to take you home. Well, the terrain wouldn't allow that where we were at, and there were just too many of these guys. I mean, supposedly this was supposed to be the initial mission was to track a 3,000-man regiment down the Ho Chi Minh Trail. And there were several teams before us that tried this that either got shot up or disappeared. And we just figured that we weren't no longer tracking them. We had found them, and like I said earlier, we found their parade field, I think, and we didn't need more people on the ground to get killed. We needed to get the hell out of there, and in order to do that, we needed all the assets that could be diverted to our location. Assets being gunships, Sky Raiders,
helicopter gunship, A-1 Sky Raider.
Yeah, Phantoms.
Yeah. They had it all.
Yeah, B-52s.
So that was a little bit later. Yeah, so later on in the drama here, but so now you're beginning to work the assets.
Right.
You do that in conjunction with Covey, Spider, and then a new problem surfaces. Spider says that we're going to cancel the bright light, and he says, "Roger that. By the way," he just kind of mentions this, "Blackjack, by the way, the assets are beginning to have difficulty with the weather and smoke hanging over the LZ."
Yeah.
I mean, oh my God.
Yeah. So if 3,000 or 4,000 guys, or let's say there's a regiment of 3,000 guys that we were sent out there to look for, and 3,000 guys shooting guns plus a recon team creates a lot of cordite, and which drifts around. And then plus we were in the mountains, and the weather was starting to, the clouds were starting to drop down in the mountains. The helicopters and gunships and stuff couldn't find where we were at. They were having difficulty finding where we were at. So,
wow.
Yeah.
So at one point, like with the Phantom jets, if you held your, was it the ERC-10?
No, it was
just a PRC-25.
PRC-25. So if you key your handset, they had the ability to lock onto that and vector your position and line up on it.
And then they're able to do a gun run based off your vector on the enemy, but not hitting the team.
Yeah, hopefully.
Under cloudy.
Yeah, yeah. So what the Phantoms were doing was we were on a plateau which had a drop off on one side, and they were coming through this valley and then coming up in order to make the gun run onto the plateau.
To avoid all the anti-aircraft.
That and avoid the anti-aircraft gun, but they had to stay out of the clouds, so they knew what the terrain was that they were operating in.
And that first one that came in like that, what was that like, just seeing that F-4 Phantom come roaring in like that?
Scared the crap out of me. Because it happens so fast, right? Well, the first thing is all the crap that's going on the ground, right?
Yeah.
Which is them firing, and then you hear the sound, and then the jet comes screaming by, and it's like you don't think of it in that way. You think you're going to see the plane, hear the sound, and see the action like you do in the movies, right?
Right.
Well, it happens in reverse when you're on the ground.
Particularly with the fast ones.
Oh yeah, and they're moving fast too. Yeah, yeah.
And then. The other part of that, too, was after the gun run, he would dip down into the valley.
Right.
As he left the area to come back for another gun run, just to avoid. This is part of that whole tactical thing with the anti-aircraft weaponry.
Well, the other thing is that the anti-aircraft guns have got a mechanism on them that only allows the gun tubes to go down to a certain level, so they were flying under the anti-aircraft fire because the guns couldn't be lowered down to shoot at them. Yeah.
If it works.
Yep. Hey, whatever works.
That's where good intel comes in.
Yep, that's right.
So one of those runs, napalm comes in, forcing dozens of the enemy to scurry onto the LZ, which is the landing zone, escaping the inferno, engulfing their comrades. So when that happens, you get a new phenomenon, which is close to the belt.
Yep.
So they hit with napalm. The enemy knows this is coming.
Right.
And then they charge the team.
Right. They try to get in as close to you as possible so that that we can't direct fire on it.
And so by this point, your ammo supplies are critical.
Yeah.
You yell out ammo check.
Right.
And as the people are checking it, then you hear King Bees coming.
Yeah.
And the King Bees at this point were the South Vietnamese Air Force, the 219th Special Operations Squadron.
Yep.
So you can hear them chugging their way in, and this is yet the first stage of another tragic moment in time, which if you want to just go through that a little bit from your end.
I don't remember this stuff. I wrote that book too long ago.
Is that right? That's why I got the book right here.
Read that.
I will be glad to. The first King Bee. We watch in disbelief as the first King Bee touches down right over an NVA smoke marker, taking multiple RPG rocket rounds on its flight deck. The force of the blast is so great, the ship teeters and finally topples on its side.
Yeah.
Each subsequent rotor blade smashing into the ground, whooping in our direction. narrowly missing Alabama as we approach.
Yeah, we were laying on the ground, and those rotor blades, two of them went right over our heads. I mean, barely missed us. Yeah.
So, again, so in the middle of all this, you're ducking propeller blades from a crashing King Bee, and you have to worry about your ammo check. We grab up NVA weapons, turning them on the enemy. They're everywhere. Why didn't we see them until now, you ask yourself?
Yeah.
These AKs have a slower rate of cyclic fire. The ammunition will last longer. We don't need a resupply. We can keep doing this till hell freezes over.
Yeah. As long as there's enemy that you can kill, you can use their weapons, right?
Yes. And so...
I mean, it's not like they're off in a distance from you. They're right at your front door.
Yeah, right. And part of that problem was when he came in, you popped the green smoke, but the NVA, which had a proclivity for trying to guess,
right,
they popped the green smoke.
Right.
The King Bee saw their smoke,
yeah.
and they paid the price for
Right.
the air there.
Right.
And second King Bee came in. And sadly, that second King Bee went down,
Yep.
but at least you didn't have to worry about crashing propellers.
Right.
But that's 2 aircraft down.
Right.
And then
That was our ride home.
Yes,
Yeah.
that was your first ride home.
Yep.
And as all of that's unfolding and you're picking up magazines from the enemy, I don't know, did you bother with any enemy hand grenades?
No.
No, just the weapons and bullets.
Right. Right.
And then bugles are sounding. Wave upon wave of NVA troops carrying rifles with fixed bayonets is advancing online. When they are feet away, we open fire using weapons we have taken from their dead. After the first burst of full automatic, the team fumbles with the AK selector switches to single shots, pushing them back. We move from body to body using their weapons and their cadavers as a shield. Crawling, kneeling, knee walking, standing, scrambling, online, in line, we defend each other and ourselves. Without a word, a look, a plan, acting on training, pure survival instinct. All of us, except one, are scampering about, dragging. We're lugging bodies, placing them in a circle around Alabama, stacking them high. We construct a cadaver garrison. I've never heard that term before. Cadaver garrison.
Cadaver garrison.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You make a circle of bodies and you live in it.
Oh, and just in your spare time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cowboy had a new wound. He's bleeding from a grazing wound to the back of his neck this time.
Yeah.
After getting hit by an RPD, shrapnel, and now he's got a head
It
wound.
was like a bullet magnet, you know.
Yeah, that trouble too.
Yeah.
So the body cadavers worked
For a while.
for a while.
Yeah. Becomes a hell of a target, too, by the way.
Yeah,
Yeah, for mortars and things like that.
right.
Yeah.
And I forget, at some point, you're right, because at some point then somebody wakes up and goes, let's stop some mortars on this guy.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
you had caught hand grenades and threw them back.
You're right. Yeah.
But in this case, it's just you just can't catch mortars.
No.
Oh, my God. And again, do you have some other good references to your support that day? In this case, it was from the 176th out of the AmeriCal Division, codenamed the Judge and the Executioner.
True. Yeah.
Indeed.
There was George Miller and his crew as well.
And for Scarface.
Yeah, yeah.
Did Scarface get there first?
Yeah, Scarface was there first. George Miller was their leader, flight leader.
Right.
It was his birthday.
No.
He was 23 years old that day. Yeah, he was supposed to be celebrating his birthday back on some airbase somewhere.
Probably back at Da Nang with
Yeah.
fellow Marines.
Yeah, And his he told me this story. He came to see me before he died years ago, and he said when they ran out of ammunition, he was running a gunship, right?
Right.
And they decided that they were going to land and try to pick us up. And when they came in to land, a bunch of North Vietnamese stood up right in front of him and killed his Peter pilot.
No.
Yeah, shot him in the chest. And he got out of there and went back and refueled and came back with a vengeance.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. I forgot about the Peter pilot.
Yeah.
So they had left. There's a new set of guns. 2 Huey Hog attack helicopters. They come in, and you talk to the judge, and the judge is the first one. He's the lead helicopter pilot in that, and some of the dialogue is just so well written here. Blackjack, judge, over. Go, judge. Anyone in particular, or just kill them all?
Yeah.
He says. Grease them all, I say, with a malevolent, bloody grimace. You're just in time for the party.
Yeah.
Again, this is just some of these little dialogue between you and the participants that day,
Right.
in the middle of this gut check situation. And I think the judge's door gun, of course, this is the Huey. We have a door gunner on each side. When they make the gun runs, they have weapons that are firing either rockets or machine guns.
They had 40 millimeters on them under the nose and rocket pods on the side. 72 rockets, I think they had total.
Right, and then the door gunners. Of course, one of the I think it was the judge's door gunner. It was his cherry mission.
Yeah.
Berg Garlow, right?
Yeah.
So William Berg, this is his first mission.
It was like, what in the hell have I gotten myself into?
Welcome to the Prairie Fire, Berg.
Yeah.
How that name came up, but I remember that. And so they have their gun runs, and you're just barely hanging on. Mm-hmm. And then at one point, Cowboy gets wounded yet again, and you're there repairing him, applying medical bandages. And I just love this little moment in time between you and Cowboy. Summing up the energy around all the medical gear, I'm giving you morphine and we'll apply a compress to that wound. But we're going to run out of bandages if you keep getting shot. Now knock it off, okay?
Yeah, that's an order. Yeah.
And then Cowboy, where's John Wayne when we need him?
Yeah, so you're joking around out there. You don't expect to get out of there alive, right? So what are you going to do? Right? Yeah.
All those moments in time.
Yeah.
So shortly after that, Kruong gets hit by a sniper, and he gets shot in the crotch. Mm-hmm. And you pick up your borrowed AK on full automatic and unload it in a tree about 100 yards away, resulting in the sniper falling through its limbs and branches to the ground below with a thump. If I could rip your heart out and eat it, I would. Kruong, what have we done? Last week you got arrested by national police in a Hue, the city of Hue, whorehouse for carrying a pistol. The entire Alabama team put on their gear and went to town and broke you out of jail so you could run this mission. God damn it. I wish we left you in that place, brother.
Yep.
Where you'd be safe now.
Yeah.
Those little twists of time.
Yeah.
You just never know how things are going to unfold. Yeah. Oh, my God. And
if you ever get to interview Tim Schaaf, if you ever talk to him, ask him about that whorehouse story, because that was a really big deal. Tim was the team leader at the time of Alabama.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, and we all got in a truck. We went down there, and drove up to that place, And
Not nowhere else, but the jail.
but the jail to get him out of jail with M60 machine guns and everything. And along the way, there was an Air Force officer walking down the road, and Tim said, "Come on, we'll give you a ride." And the guy went, "Who the hell are you guys?" Because there's no ID, no markings on us or anything.
And you got all Vietnamese.
Yeah, and when we're down there threatening the national police, and this officer's his eyes are about this big, and he says, "You're the officer. You have to negotiate this guy to get us out of jail." And the officer puffs himself up, right?
Did he really?
Yeah. Kung comes out of jail, and off we go back to camp.
Oh, my God. So as the drama unfolds, you and, again, we're confronted with the mortars again.
Yeah.
The mortars open fire, but this time, like you acknowledge, we can't catch them and throw them back.
Yeah.
So Locke and I slide over the cadaver wall, crouching, crawling, knee walking. We move toward the mortars, cautiously picking our way through the charred bodies from previous airborne assaults. Quietly, yeah, right. We travel into the jungle within a few yards of the first mortar tube. Locke stops me to draw a plan in the dirt. He will hit tube 1. I will take tube 3, and we will combine on tube 2. Damn suicide mission, I say to my breath. Locke nods. Kiet Rory, he replies.
We die. Yeah.
So needless to say, he takes out the first mortar pit, has some enemy contact. He gets actually pinned down.
Yeah.
And then you, returning to the book, Locke is pinned down, yelling as loud as possible. I'm drawing their attention, allowing Locke to move out of the kill zone. I roll our last fragmentation grenade into their midst, killing several, wounding the rest. Locke and I attack the second tube before returning to the team, picking up ammo from the dead. Snipers dog us all the way back to our cadaver garrison. The two of us press our bloody bodies against the jungle floor as green tracers search the air around us. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Yes. The beat goes on.
Yeah.
But you got the mortar tubes out.
Yeah. We got the mortar tubes, and if you can imagine, at this point, every single guy on the team who is alive, from the top of their head to the bottom of their feet, is covered in blood. We just were red from blood, just everywhere, moving the bodies, crawling around and stuff like that. And the local flora and fauna, dirt, twigs, leaves, and all that crap is beginning to stick to us. We look like we're wearing our own ghillie suits, our own camouflage suits, right?
Mother Nature's finest.
Yeah. Bigfoot had nothing on us.
Yeah. But you never, to get it that thick on your skin between the sweat and everything else is going on.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Oh. And so the next approach to rescue STI to Alabama is, this time, Jolly Green Giants. Mm-hmm. When everything else fails, we knew that we could call the Air Force Jolly Green Giants that had the HH-3 helicopters at that time, which were more heavily armored, had more heavily weapons. And again, that's one of those sad moments where the pilot comes in and goes to the wrong smoke.
Yep.
Oh. And then as the pilot goes toward the wrong smoke, the NVA raise up all around JG-64, firing everything they have. As the pilot keys his radio to answer back, I hear a crew member in the background calm yelling, "We have a fuel leak. It's everywhere. Get me out of here." The pilot struggles to lift off while maintaining control. That aircraft then leaves the area.
Yep.
Then a second one comes in, and this one is Jolly Green Giant 10 approaches. And the Green Furies, meaning enemy fire, playing a deafening tune through its skin.
Yep.
Now you're writing here, from our position, we can see an enemy rocket crew rise up in the grass, take aim, and fire directly into the underbelly of JG-10.
Right.
We're hit. We have a 6-inch hole through the floor. Both engine warning lights just came on. We can't make the pickup. And you're going back, oh my God, both engines are on fire.
Right. And I got that information from the pilot, his name is Sam Granier, lives in Louisiana. And yeah, he told me that story. I talked to him on the phone about what happened to them.
Well, I think that's what makes some of your book so compelling. You're not just telling a little stodgy war story.
Mm-hmm.
Like Joe Bibb the Ragman came up against 10 NVA today. It was a bad day in hell.
Yeah.
You went back and got a hold of the people.
Right.
And then you talked to them about the quotes from that day.
Right. Yeah. You want the personal stories, or really, what they were thinking, what they were doing.
Absolutely. And so here is the classic example. Is you're able to talk to him.
Yeah.
And so from there, he crashes.
Yeah.
And if you talk just a little bit, when he crashes, I'm looking for the detail right here at that moment, but that Jolly Green crashed. One crew member was killed.
Right.
And then, but they're out of sight. As far as you're concerned, they crashed. You're aware of it.
Yeah, we thought they were dead.
Right.
Yeah.
And, now it's like, okay, what's next?
Right.
So this firefight, all this different action has gone on. And so now we're later into the day. You had other fast movers in. Cubby had to come back. And then you get a message from Mandolin telling you that Jolly Green Giant 32's en route.
Mm-hmm.
And you get on the Air Force frequency, and he tells you that we have 20 minutes of fuel before I leave. The first person we must see better be an American.
Right.
Hurry. We are taking heavy ground fire. Our armor isn't holding up this close to the source.
Yeah.
Oh
they were
God.
They were between two hillsides in a ravine. They had actually he had come in and lowered the Jolly Green down into the trees, was chopping the tops of trees out with his rotor blades and just sitting there. And they were on both hillsides firing rockets and machine gun fire through the sides of the helicopter.
And so I think he had extra crew members, because he had traditionally it'd be a door gunner on the right side, door gunner on the left, but also in this case, didn't you say they saw gunfire coming out of the back tailgate?
No.
No? Okay.
No.
That's my confusion. That's why I asked.
Yeah.
Now it's been clarified.
Yeah.
So this changes the whole scene, and you're told by, was it Mandolin, that you got to get to this target.
Right.
I mean, not to the target, but to the helicopter.
Right.
But in order to get there, you've got to cover some nasty territory.
Yeah.
And that includes your little trip on a ledge.
Yeah.
Could you just back into that scenario?
Yeah, well, they had backed us up to the edge of the cliff, and there was a ledge about 15 feet below, so we crawled down and worked our way along the rock face to try to avoid them. Yeah.
Yeah. This is like a high-priced game of hide and go seek.
Well, it was worse than that. It was lunch hour, and we were missing it.
Oh, I forgot how bad that is.
I mean, we didn't even get a break. You know what I mean?
So then, as all this is going on, you get a quick commo burst from Covey saying, an arc light is coming.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Now, an arc light for our listening audience, please.
As a flight of B-52s coming out of Udorn, I believe it was, if I remember rightly.
Yes.
Yeah. And they were going to arc light the whole area, which is an arc light is usually about a mile long and about half a mile wide, And
Simple
there's-
B-52s.
Yeah, they create big holes in the ground and stuff like that, you know.
So you talked to Covey, and you asked for some gun runs
Right.
between you and the helicopter.
Right.
And they're able to execute some of them, but then at some point, Blackjack, the CBU, which are cluster bomb unit strikes,
Right.
they've created negative visibility.
Yeah.
We're unable to provide support until we can get a window open.
Yeah.
And you're saying to yourself in the book, you're looking for a window, and I'm looking for a door.
You got it. Yeah. It was not only could they not see at that point, we were having difficulty on the ground seeing.
Really?
It was like a fog had descended.
Yeah.
And you couldn't see 50 feet in front of you.
Well, again, so here's your marvelous spirit, Lynne Black. Spider, Blackjack. The good news is it has also decreased visibility for the NVA.
Yes. Thank you, Jesus.
Gunfire has noticeably subsided. Keep up the smoke. We'll move by ear, hugging the face of the cliff, making our way across the rumble of the ledge. We come to a dead end. Crap. Now we have to climb up over the ledge. So you climb up and you continue to move forward. And all of this is going on. And then you finally get moving. Locke is the 1-0, the 0-1, who's leading the team out. And you come across, of all things, a village.
Yeah. So it was basically what is known as a bin tram, which is a camp, and it will depending on where it is along
The Ho Chi Minh Trail.
on the Ho Chi Minh Trail, their migration route, it will hold 3, 4, 5,000 people, and they're generally spread out over about a 5-mile length. And this one was it had hundreds of buildings in it, hooches that were built up on stilts, like you see the mountain yard housing.
sure.
Well, it was like that, and there were campfires and kitchens.
Fires were still burning?
Oh yeah, there was stuff cooking, cooking in pots.
Oh, they knew it was lunchtime.
They got lunch. Did we get lunch? No, we didn't get a break. No. I still want to complain about that, by the way.
Yes. Who do we complain to?
Yeah,
and annoy
who
about?
cares?
Oh, my God. And so as you approached the village, you had one more surprise, which you see an American.
Yeah. Caspier, I think
Yes.
his name was. Yes, he was a PJ.
PJ Dean Caspier.
Yep.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, and he was on that chopper, the
Crashed.
second Jolly Green that crashed.
You assumed all were dead, but
We-
fortunately
we,
you were wrong.
we thought they were all dead because we saw the fire from, we could see the smoke and stuff from where we were. And he had Grenier with him, who was the pilot.
Right.
And Grenier had his back broken.
Somehow he can walk with
Yeah,
a broken
but
back.
I'll tell you what, when it's like Cowboy, right?
Yeah.
Cowboy was shot to shit.
Yeah.
But he was running, shooting, talking. Okay, there's an adrenaline that takes over when you get into a situation like that. And Grenier stood up and he said, "I think I'm hurt," but off we went.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
This is a moment in time for us also to talk and pay a little homage to the courage of the Jolly Green Giants,
Oh yeah,
which you just did so marvelously here. Because you quoted, you were able to get a hold of Dean at some point, and the other members of the crew didn't make it, you asked?
yeah, they do. Yeah.
And he goes, 10 was burning. There was only time to get Grenier out before it exploded.
Yeah,
Our flight engineer, Greg Lawrence, and co-pilot Dwayne Wester were trapped inside.
yeah.
I didn't have time. And the PJ pauses. JG-10 exploded before I could get back to them.
Right.
We've been waiting for you guys, hoping you would make it before we had to E&E, talking about finally meeting up with you.
So he's in that NVA camp, eating food out of their pot where they had been cooking. So he was eating and trying to
Did
get.
he share any of the food with you?
Yeah, exactly. They were on a break. They got a break, right?
The Air Force.
So he was. The Air Force gets a break. Of course they do. Damn Air Force. So
except when we need them.
yeah, yeah, I love those guys. So what he was doing was he was putting provisions together because he was going to try to E&E with Grenier to get out of there, right? Mm-hmm. If we didn't show up.
Good God. So again, being tactically astute, you point out the NVA are focused on JG32. They're easing the pressure on us. We need to move as quickly as possible. 32 doesn't have much time left on station. We need to go now. So you move everybody out, head in that direction, and Watkins is able to direct a couple more blind gun runs.
Right.
Between you and JG32.
Yeah.
And then you follow, and the team heads towards the helicopter.
Right.
Oh, that's just unbelievable. And so finally, you're able to get there. We progress hastily, and there's just so many different little scenarios. People got to get the book to get every little nuance here. I just can't do it justice today. But they do get there. You do have the American come out, so they know it's you.
Yeah.
They began loading some of the people. And as you, in the process of moving the team to the helicopter, so you hear about Kuang.
Yeah, the 1-1 was carrying Kuang on his back. And at some point, he put him down in a bush and made his way he left him and headed towards the helicopter. And once I got guys going up on the jungle penetrator into the Jolly Green, I asked him, where the hell is Kuang? And he said he's back on the trail. So I turned around and ran down the trail to get him.
God. Now, when you get to Kuang, quote, Kuang is covered with bloated black leeches, mosquitoes, and giant flies feeding off the last of his ebbing life.
Yeah, he was white at that point. He was very close to death.
Mumbling, he wobbles his Colt 45 at advancing NVA. Toi quiet.
I die.
The tail gunner motions me to return to the Jolly Green. I turn. Kuang shoots himself. You sons of a bitches. My cry is lost in the sounds of battle. Tears obscure my vision as I scramble like a raving lunatic back in the direction of the waiting ship, rushing smack into 2 screaming NVA soldiers. Their AKs pointed at me. Chu hoi! Chu hoi!
Give up.
Surrender.
Yeah.
And again, in your book, I surrender, you say.
Yeah.
But you didn't surrender. You kept moving right toward
Put
them.
my hands up and walked towards them. Yeah. And they moved up on either side of me, pushed one away, slapped the other one, grabbed that one, shot him, and off I
Which,
went.
by the way, the AK-47s were pretty hot.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It took all the skin off of
my hands.
off of my hands. Yeah, yeah, because I grabbed them by the barrel. Yeah.
So, okay. Yeah. So you were able to deal with them.
Yeah.
One more little aspect.
Yeah.
So at this point, you get on the line that's pulling you up, and it's just you, penetrator. Thank you. You and the 1-1 are together.
Yeah.
You're going up. You're the last 2 out because, again, you know where everybody is.
Right.
You've checked the ground. The team is off.
Yep.
The 1-0 is the last person off the ground.
That's right.
That you did. As you're going up, at some point, you're just so beat, you almost passed out.
It was like when I looked up and I saw that we were on the penetrator and about halfway up, and the ship started lifting up out of that ravine, and I felt we're going to make it. We're going to be safe. And I was like, all the energy just went out of my body, and I slumped on it. It was I don't know how to explain it, but it was like I was done for the day. You know what I mean? It was time to punch out, I guess. And the 1-1 grabbed me and held on to me until we got up, and they loaded us in, and off we went.
He loaded your fatigued ass into the helicopter.
Yeah.
Oh my God! But even it's like the way you describe what's happening to that helicopter.
Yeah.
Even when you approach it and you're on the ground, you can see metal fragments from it, rounds hitting it.
Yeah, metal skin and stuff was falling off of it, and it was so riddled. And they were firing B-40 rockets up into the bottom of the helicopter, and it was just pushing it up.
Right.
And it almost knocked you off the penetrator while you were in it.
Yeah. So this
it just take hit after hit, you know.
Yeah, because I remember you telling me this years ago. When they lifted off, you could feel the helicopter being thrust.
That's right.
Boom, boom.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And so we got to at least pay homage to the helicopter pilot here, who was Lieutenant Colonel Jim Grady.
Yeah.
Okay. And then his PG was a power specialist, Alan Avery.
Yeah.
And he leaves his gun position and begins tending to the wounds.
Right.
Once clear of the jungle, the ship begins its ascent out of the valley. The flight mechanic, Sergeant John Naisbaum, recovers his helmet and places it on my head. Co-pilot Major Don Olson tells me, "We're on our way out of here, partner."
Yeah.
I'm cold.
Yeah. So you can imagine you're down in the jungle and you're hotter than hell, right? But you get up, and you've experienced this yourself. Whether you're riding strings or you're in a helicopter.
Yeah.
You get up there, and all of a sudden you're freezing to death. You go from over 100 degrees to like 40 degrees or something like that, and it's a shock to your body.
Yeah, and the one thing you didn't cover in the book too, I thought that this helicopter, after it flew for a period of time, could go no further.
Right.
Had to do an emergency landing.
Right.
And so they had to further bring out more air assets to pick up the remainder of your team, all the Air Force personnel.
Right.
And in the end, a Cobra gunship came in.
Right.
And a Cobra gunship has door racks with straps.
Yeah, so they have where they keep their 40 millimeter ammo and stuff in the nose. The doors open up, and they had put seat belts on those doors. And so we just strapped in there, and off we went.
You and 1-1.
Yeah.
You on one side and 1-1 on the other?
Yeah.
Oh, my God. See, and that's even worse for being cold, because that Cobra can fly fast.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah.
Oh, my God. So you do get back, but they took you directly back to the base. You went to Da Nang.
Right.
And you were there with the Air Force.
Right. Overnight.
And
their medics checked us out and, patched everybody up and all that kind of stuff. And
even the Indige, huh?
Even the Indige. Oh, yeah. They really wondered about that. Who the hell are you guys, and what were you doing out there, right? Because those Jolly Greens, their mission was not to support anybody in Laos. Their mission was actually in the China Sea to pick up downed pilots, and they had come in, had been redirected, and none of those guys had ever flown in the jungle before.
Really?
Yeah. They weren't trained to do that.
Get out.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. And so at some point, I forget where in your book you got around to that, but there was a very emotional moment in time for you that night where you walked past, or you saw the slogan.
The motto, yeah.
The motto.
Yeah, so that others may live.
Indeed. And that day is the epitome of that moment, of that motto and the men that stick by it.
Yeah.
I just can't imagine.
So Pat Watkins, Madden to Lynne, told me several years later at reunion that, yeah, a 9-man team came back with 6 guys after a battle like that. And that's highly unusual. But he said there were 19 airmen that lost their lives that day.
19?
19. And he had it all figured out. So if you think about that, there's 21 guys against the odds that we were fighting that lost their lives. And most of it were guys who came in to support us and save us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's, with the, for the last couple of years, the Special Operations Association has compiled a list of 50 Green Berets that are still technically listed as missing in action today from the Secret War. And then they've documented 83 airmen to date.
Yeah.
Which is just an indicator of just that commitment.
Right.
And again, the double-edged sword, nobody knew what we were doing or what the aviators were doing.
Right.
Or how they lost their lives under such usually historic and amazing conditions on the ground.
Yeah.
So at some point, from Da Nang, you and your 1-1 are rushed to Saigon to give a briefing, and there's a long briefing where you give a brief back. 1-1 gives a little bit of he gives some details about having his face in the ground for the day.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to take to was here just to indicate the intelligence. We're quoting. You were able to quote. I think it's Chief SOG, who at that time was Steve Cavanaugh.
Right.
And just an outstanding soldier, World War II, highly decorated soldier. And he replaced Jack Singlaub as Chief SOG. And during that back brief, this is the Colonel Cavanaugh speaking. Our best intelligence indicates there's approximately 2,000 miles of trail and between 12 to 15 Bintrans, which is like the one you ran into,
right.
611.
Right.
And then thousands of anti-aircraft guns, 20 to 30,000 support soldiers, all defended by 40 to 60,000 security troops. That's what we need intel on. Are you ready to go back and take another whack?
Well, hell yeah.
Oh, yeah. So first, this is October of 68.
Yeah.
The numbers, because the numbers I'd always operated on, we were told there were 25 to 30,000 NVA there.
Yeah.
Okay, they're the combat. You don't think about the support troops.
Right.
But when there's a team on the ground, they're coming hunting.
Yeah.
Them boys get an AK, or
Right.
at least an SKS or something.
That's right.
Oh, my God. And we were like maybe a month or two away from Johnson declaring the bombing halt.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so with the bombing halt in Hanoi, North Vietnam, that brings more anti-aircraft.
Yeah, that gave them time to move trucks and radar-controlled anti-aircraft guns, build platforms in trees, build radar traps for coveys and stuff like that.
Good God. Yeah.
Sorry about that.
That's it. Oh, man. So with that, you get everybody passed up. And you also had a little private get-together with some of the commanders there, which I don't know if you got a picture or two, but you were able to exchange a green beret for one of their red berets.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Plus, they gave us a certificate, which I still have. We're official members of the Jolly Green Giants, and everybody on the team got that.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, how cool.
Yeah.
No, I never heard that side of the story.
Oh, yeah. I've got pictures of that. And yeah, they said that was an unusual operation for them.
Unusual indeed.
Yeah.
And so after...
By the way, I got to add one thing here.
Yeah.
Remember when we first started out, I said I went back because I hadn't seen the enemy on my first tour.
Right.
I saw the enemy.
The good news is I saw the enemy.
Those
the
little
bad news
ugly suckers are going to... Yeah.
Those little guys with those big AK-47s.
Yeah. And, that being the first mission, there's only about a year and... almost 2 more years to go. So
that's right. 'Cause by that time you had gone through the training group and everything.
Yeah.
But, they also had, this is reflection, at the end of that briefing, the Sergeant Major asked you if there's anything else. Again, I just wanted to get that paint one more time. He said, do you have anything else to say? And he said, yes. The Jolly Green Giants, the motto painted on that sides of the ship, so that others may live. Emotion wells up. Give me a minute, please. The thought of the JGs, the Vietnamese Kingbees, and all the others who committed their lives to saving Alabama emotionally inundated my senses, overpowering my ability to stuff the emotions back down. My eyes flooded with tears. We were alive today due to you all. Thank you. Mm-hmm. And that's, like you said, a total of 19.
Yeah. Yeah.
I never heard that number before.
Yeah, Pat figured that all out.
Mandolin, he's the man.
Yeah, yeah.
So things get really interesting in a different kind of way now. You've been in South Vietnam, returning from the hell of Laos. Mm-hmm. You've been shot up a little bit.
Yeah.
You do your debrief. So this is the second day after you return from the mission, maybe October 6th or 7th,
couple
8th.
Days, yeah.
Give or take a day.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Saigon wanted a debrief, right?
So you give them the debrief. Yeah. You and one get in there, do your thing.
Yeah.
And then afterwards you thought, maybe I'll just go out and get a beer.
Yeah, yeah. Yes. A beer sounded good around that time, right? Yeah.
Things got really interesting.
My hands are sore. I'm beat the crap. Yeah. And so during my first tour over there, I got to go to Saigon a couple of times, and I went to a place called the King Bar. And I used to love to play gin rummy when I was young. And they played gin rummy in there. They played a Saigon version of it. And you played for drinks.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. And I was really a good gin rummy player. And when I left after my first tour, they owed me a lot of drinks. And when I walked in the door, when I left in 66, I walked back in the door in 68. The same owners, they said, Black. They recognized me right off, opened up the book on the bar and said, we owe.
No.
Yeah, sit down with my girls. We got to get this off the books, right? So we started playing gin rummy in the King Bar. Yeah.
Oh, my God. So you wind up going downtown. I forget if you had somebody riding with you on a little scooter that you borrowed from Madam Bick.
Yeah.
I don't know how to get into this, but that night you go downtown and things kind of got twisted. Could you just go into that just a little bit? Because that is another. Yeah, it's a sidelight, but still fascinating moment.
So I'm thinking after that October 5th mission, we're going to go downtown, have a few beers, and we're sitting in a King Bar, and there's playing gin rummy with these three bar girls. And this guy walks up, and he's French. And he asked if he could join us in playing cards, right? Yeah. Well, he sits down, and we have this little exchange about, who are you and what do you do and all that kind of stuff. And it was, he's asking me questions because it's obvious I'm in Special Forces because I'm in civilian clothes, where the Marine Corps and the Army guys they're not allowed to wear civilian clothes, right? Right. And so what he's doing, it turns out, he's trying to gather intel. He's a Viet Cong sympathizer, is what he was. All right. Well, during our debriefing that happened earlier, there were two CIA guys that sat in on that briefing. And the CIA and SOG changed, and NSA exchanged a lot of intelligence about Cambodia and the DMZ. And
they took all our wiretaps.
Yeah, exactly. Sure. And so as I'm sitting there, those two guys that were in the briefing from the CIA walked in the door. And they walked. The King Bar was kind of a narrow place. The bar, as you walked in the front door, the bar is on
On the left.
On the left.
Long.
And there was a long kind of alleyway kind of thing. And then there were booths on the right-hand side.
I've been there.
Yeah, is that right? Yeah. And then in the back was the John, right?
I didn't get there.
Well, I shouldn't say John, should I?
It's okay.
So the men's room, whatever it's called. And then there was a back door that went out into the alley. Well, those two guys kind of walked past where I was playing cards with these guys, and they looked down and they went in to the men's room. And a couple, like less than a minute later, the French guy stands up and he said, I got to go, right? So he goes into the men's room. I'm thinking, yeah, I don't think anything about that, right?
Sure.
And we play a hand or so, and I've got to go to the men's room. So I went to go into the men's room, and the door's blocked. I can't get the door open. I went, okay, I'll just go out into the back alley, which, you open the door and there's a wall there, and then this alley is very narrow, like 3 feet wide, that kind of goes along the back of these buildings. So I just kind of went down a little bit, and I'm taking a leak, and the back door opens up, and I look down as there's a little light comes out of the back door, and I'm pissing on some guy's body.
Oh.
Yeah. And this guy runs the other way and goes over the wall and disappears, right? Well, I went, what the hell? Well, it's getting close to curfew time. And one of the women that I was playing cards with invites me to go to Mama Bick's to spend the night. So I said, okay, where's Bick's? It's go out onto.
And again, you knew a little bit about her from your first tour duty?
No.
Okay.
No. I just met her that night. They called her Bucky because of her teeth. And so I go out on the street, make a right, and I find the building, and I start to go up into the building. Or I enter the building, and I'm going down this hallway, and the hallway is like a monkey trap. It gets narrower and narrower and narrower because there's a stairway coming down that goes up to the second floor, and then it's got this jog, and then you go around and you get on a stairway, right? Well, I get to the jog, and it's like something out of a scary movie. There's hardly any light or anything. And as I went to go around to go up the stairs, there's a door there, which is an apartment door, and there was a sign on the door. It was just a piece of paper with a name on it, Sean Flynn, right? And I kind of went, Sean Flynn. It's probably Errol Flynn's son, right? And I start to go up the stairs, and that door opened up, and this woman says, "You, Special Forces, right?" "Yeah." Come here. Well, I go in there, and one of those CIA guys is in there. Whoa. And he's wounded. And I thought, what the fuck's going on here?
Yeah.
What the hell?
Yeah.
And he says, I need your help. And he tells me that the French. That's how I learned the French guy was a sympathizer. And he says he's going to leave Saigon and go to Benoit, and he's got a load of guns that he's going to deliver into Benoit, and I need your help stopping him. So Bick says, I've got a motorcycle out back that you can ride, right? And so the CIA guy says, you drive and I'll shoot. And he says he's going to be in a car, and he's over on Hybetrong Street. And he said, all I need you to do is to drive up next to it. He said, and I'll grease the guy. And he said, we'll go back and you can go upstairs, right? Easy stuff, right? Peasy. So we go out there, and there's this Vespa, right? And we get on we get on this thing, and we drive up next to this car, and he shoots this guy. Well, there's another guy in a car.
The driver?
Yeah. And as I try to speed away, the driver shoots the guy.
You're speeding on a Vespa.
Yeah. Put, right? With two guys on it, if you can imagine. So he shoots the CIA guy, and we get out onto Hybetrong, which I think was what's called the Street of Flowers. And they had literally, that's where flower vendors sold all the flowers and stuff. So they had all these tables and stuff, and usually cloth hanging over the front of them. And so we kind of fall over next to one of these things, and the guy dies.
No.
So I slid him underneath of one of those things, and I rode the scooter back to Bix, and thinking, oh shit, it's curfew time, and Quan Con's going to arrest my ass and throw me in jail, right? And I get back there and pull up behind her to go upstairs and spend the night with Bucky. Well, the guy that I was peeing on outside of the bar turned out to be the other CIA guy that the French guy had shot in the head. And so they had a tussle in there, and I kind of inadvertently stumbled into it. And I'm thinking, here I am, I'm up in this whorehouse with, and I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, is
You're supposed to get a little slack.
This is not. Yeah, come on. I came for a beer and a game of cards. Give me a break.
Oh my word.
So that's yeah.
I can't imagine.
Me either, as a matter of fact.
Yeah. And then the question was, did you ever really meet Sean Flynn, who was the son of
He
Errol
actually
Flynn?
turned out to be Errol Flynn's son, yeah.
But even there was a little spin-off at the end, because not too far away, he met his demise.
Yeah. So he wasn't home. He had, there was all kind of camera bodies, and he went out with the Marines a lot and did a lot of photographs of Marine troops in combat, and they were posted up on the walls of his room and stuff, and it was interesting. It was interesting what he was.
As a fellow artist, you appreciated what he did.
Yeah, he took good pictures. So it turned out that at the time that I was experiencing that little thing, he was in Cambodia with another reporter and got captured by the
Khmer Rouge?
Yeah, the Khmer Rouge, and they executed them in Cambodia.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
So it's just stuff. It's a small world,
Oh, no question about it.
Yeah.
You just never know.
No, you don't.
So from a beer to going along
Yeah.
with two CIA
Yeah.
agents to get whacked.
And the beer wasn't that good. You remember Beer 33, right?
Oof. That's
Bob
why
Louis.
yeah, that's why I drank Coke.
Yeah. Like, oh, don't do that. You don't drink Coke. Never drink Coke in South Vietnam. Never. Ever. You don't remember House 22?
If it was only...
Jesus. Did you? Oh, God, that's disgusting, John.
I only drank it from this can. I didn't...
You're bull.
Not used.
They didn't have cans. They had a Coke bottling plant. Did you read that? You know what we're talking about? Oh, my God. You want me to tell that story?
Yeah, let's just go ahead. We'll
okay.
just jump right into the old Coca-Cola story, chapter 13.
Is that what it is?
It is, sir. I'm
Yeah.
turning. I'm just following you right along here.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So we land. I'm back on my second tour, right? And we hit Nha Trang, and you go through an acclimatization period, right? And you get orders. You go to SOG, and so you get on a plane, and you land at this air base, and they take us to a safe house called House 22 that was run by SOG, and that's where you got your initial briefing, or I did anyway, right, with a bunch of other guys. And on the second floor, on the first floor, there's like a big briefing room and a bar and all this. It's special forces, so there's got to be a bar, right? And so there's a bar and really great food in that place, right? The second floor is full of bunk beds and whores, right? And I'm up there, and I've never been partial to sleeping with those kind of women. So I'm trying to sleep, and these women are going from bunk to bunk to bunk to bunk to bunk, right? And there's guys coming out of the field, and they're coming there to do their business with the girls and stuff like that. And finally, I just go, good God, it's like hotter than hell. It's like over 100 degrees, right? So I think I'm going to go take a shower. Well, the shower had 4 or 6 shower heads in it. It was like one of those big bay kind of things, right? And went into the shower, and over in the corner of the shower are cases of bottled Coca-Cola. sitting in a shower. And I walked in, I looked at that, and I go, what in the hell is, what is this? Well, one of the prostitutes comes in, uncorks, shakes up the bottle, uncorks it, sticks it up her vagina, and douches with it. I have not ever drank another Coca-Cola since the time that happened. And never, I know what it's used for. It's a meat tenderizer, and it's a douche.
And maybe not in that order if you're in South Vietnam.
Hello.
But I wanted, while we're having so much fun here,
you're going to cut this part out, right?
I don't know. We'll depend on the censors on that. But I wanted to go to another chapter where one of the moments of your first tour of duty that led to an enhancement of the blackjack legend within SOG annals was the creative way that you approached developing the perfect ambush for SOG Recon team.
Yeah.
And the question was, because teams down south had one team in particular had very much success at capturing POWs, enemy POWs. Because
Right.
the best source of intelligence is enemy POWs.
Right. Do you know why they were successful?
Oh, tell me why.
Because we wore them out up north. And they were so tired when they got down south, they practically gave up to those guys.
Damn near, huh?
That's it. Okay. You guys in CCS and CCC hear that?
We're going to hear about that
Yeah,
one.
I know. I can hear it coming now. That's why I'm never going to another reunion.
Indeed. So I wanted to turn to the another chapter, which I think is, let me see, to be completely accurate. I'm turning to chapter number 8, Snuff and Snatch. Mm-hmm. And the snatch being a POW snatch.
Yes.
As opposed to
House
our previous
22.
discussion
Mm-hmm.
coke and douching and things.
Right.
So at some point, the question arose, how can we get a ambush set up on a kill zone? So the idea being a recon team or a hatchet force to be on a team, there's a trail, and you have claymores that would kill everything.
Right.
But the question was, in the center, it would have one space
Right.
that could knock out the person.
Just from the concussion between the two claymores.
Right.
That was the common thinking of the time, yeah.
Indeed. And so that common thinking whirled around in the creative mind of Lynne and Black Jr. You thought about a unique way to do that.
Right.
And so I just wanted to turn to a key section of this chapter because you had, first of all, maybe as I'm fumbling for the page here, you could talk a little bit about what started you on this and how you began to approach it.
So ops kind of said we need to get some POWs.
Ops meaning S3 of FOB1.
Yeah. Thank you. And we need to focus a little on getting some POWs, other than what we did in Ashau, where we were flying back from a mission and there was a NVA soldier down there waving his arms. I give up, right? Yeah, which that actually happened. So,
Is that right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That
Where was that?
Who would? Oh God, I'm gonna forget his name. He's gonna kill me for this. Who's the medic that I took out on his one and only mission?
Robert.
Yes,
Shippen.
yeah, Robert
Shippen.
Shippen. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, and actually, Shippen saw the guy down in Ashau, wanting to chew Hoi, and so we landed and picked him up and took him back. We thought at the time that he wasn't an NVA. We thought he was like a South Vietnamese soldier who had somehow gotten isolated. Turned out he was an NVA, and I got my butt chewed over that for not securing the guy in the helicopter because he had access to our weapons and all of that stuff. What a dummy! So mean, not him.
Yeah.
So what happened was he said, and so Ops explained, this whole thing with the two claymores and the concussion and all that crap, right?
Yeah.
And all it and that almost every time they tried this, everybody got killed and all that stuff. So he said, start thinking about this. So I started thinking about it, and I said, okay. So we had this wonderful thing called C4.
A plastic explosive.
That's it.
Indeed.
And it came in 75-pound crates, and there were blocks of C4 that were 2 inches by 2 inches by 12 inches, and they were wrapped in plastic, and they had holes in either end that you could put blasting caps. And so I strung a line of C4. When it took a case, went out on the range, strung a line of C4 with 8-foot sections of detonation cord. And I took a hand generator, and I got X amount of distance from it, and I blew it off, and the wind and all that kind of stuff went over me. I thought, okay, that's step one. So I rigged it up again, and I took another 10 or so steps forward, and I blew it off again, this happened a couple times until finally it knocked me down. I went, okay, we're almost there. We're not, because I got to find out how to just knock these guys out, right?
Right. That's a critical part.
That's the,
Yeah.
And nobody else wanted to participate in this. I can't understand why.
Why?
No sense of adventure. So I finally, when I woke up, I'd been out there a while, and I kind of got in a Jeep, and I drove back to camp, and evidently it had been like a couple of days that I'd been laying out on the range. I figured, well, that shit works. I know how far I need to be away, So I now know how to rig it, right? So I kind of had to go to the medics because I had a concussion, and I had a really bad headache for a couple of weeks, and then it was finally time to run the mission, right? So Alabama goes out, and we set this thing up on the Ho Chi Minh Trail. Now, there's a difference between working on a flat firing range and working on that trail, which is flat. I'm thinking that, this is logical, right?
Yeah.
The trail's flat. And then there was this rise, like there was a ditch on the side of the trail, and then this berm, and then this hill. There was a lot of foliage on it, right? So we rig it up along the side of where that berm was, and go up, and we hide in there, and about somewhere between 50 and 100 guys come walking by, and I torched that off, and it blew all their legs off. There were legs everywhere. And what happens was, you know what a shape charge is?
Oh, yeah.
Well, that berm had created, I'm not that smart, right? And what I did...
Well, you're a weapons guy.
Yeah, and you know what they're like. And I had created this perfect shape charge that just... And... Well, so much for the POW. I mean, we got a lot of patches and papers and stuff like that.
Get anything for bringing back half an NVA?
No. So I felt really bad about that, right? I did, because I'd let ops down. We didn't get the POW. We got a lot of intel, but didn't get the POW. And I had to go report out on this in Saigon. It's another debriefing, right? So I get done in Saigon, and I'm down in the King Bar.
Yeah. Oh, right?
Again. and I'm sitting there having a drink. This is going to sound bad.
It is, but that's why we're here.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Yeah.
But some South Vietnamese soldier who had lost his legs and was on one of these little dollies.
Oh, yeah.
They used to go along the street and sell things. Yeah. Came into the bar, and I looked down, and I started laughing. I couldn't
then it wasn't PC.
It all came out. It was like, oh my God, Okay, there's some black humor, and no pun intended.
Indeed.
Yeah.
So, did you ever try it again?
No.
Because I know we carried that for a couple months.
Do you remember using instant foxhole? Remember that stuff?
No. You know what? I know nothing.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you're one of those guys. Okay. So instant foxhole was an ammonia-based chemical that you could pour a cap full of it. We carried it in canteens. Mm-hmm. And you poured it in a cap, and you poured it on the ground and stuck a stuck a blasting cap in it and set it off, and it would dig a foxhole for you about 6 feet deep. Okay.
Get out.
No.
How many feet?
About 6 feet. You could jump in it and be secure, depended on the how soft that soil was. But it was that's what it was called, instant foxhole. So I figured, aha, what a great idea, right? So I poured about 30 feet of that along the trail. Tried that. That doesn't work either, I'm going to tell you.
I'm sorry.
It's all just for fun.
Indeed.
Yeah.
So what? Why?
Why we were a bunch of Spec 4s unsupervised.
That's why there's less risk aversion these days.
Yeah, I heard that. I just don't understand that.
All right. Well, so you don't want to talk about what happened when you did blow that off for 30 feet?
Nobody survived that.
Okay. Moving right along. The apricots in the air and Smokey the Bear.
Yeah.
There's something about just the headline alone that I loved it and was drawn to it. But I don't know. It's just that story was just one more of your little sidebars here. But if you want to get into the apricots and talking a little bit, or should we just go to getting back to the more serious side of SOG? We're just having a little bit too much fun here, I think. But there was a chapter later on Eldest Son, which was deadly serious. And we learned, again, the hard way, just how serious all that was. And this is chapter 12, again, to anybody. Whiskey Foxtrot Tango is the book we're on. We're talking to the author today. And that, if you could just give us a little bit of background first on what the Eldest Son mission was.
Well, basically the Eldest Son, which that's the common name that everybody knows it today, but it had a lot of different names.
Oh,
and they changed it regularly just to confuse people. But they used to give us AK-47 ammunition that had been doctored that if you fired it, would blow up the receiver in the gun. They also gave us AK, and we would, when we get in contact, we'd sprinkle, we'd have an AK-47 magazine with one of those rounds in it, and we'd drop it during a battle,
right,
hoping that the NVA would pick it up. And the whole idea of it was to give them the impression, the NVA, the enemy, that their weapons weren't of high quality. That it was a psychological operation. We did not just AK-47, but mortar rounds and any kind of stuff that they had. We'd also build cache sites, phony cache sites along the Ho Chi Minh Trail.
Did you actually do that?
Yeah. Did I do that? No.
Yeah.
But I know guys who did. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, and it never really ever worked out all that well. I don't know how it could. But the Eldest Son stuff did work.
Clearly.
It clearly did, especially the AK-47 stuff. We'd also have weapons like AK-47s, SKSs, and
Easy for you to
RPGs
say.
that the chambers had been cracked on, so when they fired, they'd blow up. Okay, and we'd leave them out also. I did that several times. So that, they were psychological operations, kind of like, what the heck did we call that? Do you remember Zolonakis, the guy from NSA? Do you remember him? Yeah. Well,
we can get into that later, because you dealt with him.
Yeah.
Because we had the story that's been told by the Frenchman.
Yeah.
And then him and Gunther Wald with the ST Virginia.
Right.
With Zolonakis.
Yeah.
And you had a separate incident, which I never knew about until a couple of years ago at one of the reunions. You go, oh, yeah, we knew him.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's the guy that taught wiretaps and gave us special stuff.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So.
2 in, 1 out missions, all that.
Oh, is that right?
Stay behind missions.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, I wanted to get to this particular Eldest Son, and this is still in that early time frame of 68, which 1968 in the Vietnam War was the highest casualty rate, and also for SOG, the highest casualty rate.
Mm-hmm.
And it intensified, particularly once Lyndon Johnson had ceased the bombing, more personnel, more anti-aircraft, etc., came down the trail. And again, I just wanted to take a tip to your writing skills here. At the beginning of this chapter, sometimes you have little quotes and things. And here, you're talking before you get into the actual story, which is chapter 12, Eldest Son. I'm not feeling well today. I fought NVA all night in my sleep. I'm more tired than when I went to bed. Man, I really got beat to shit fighting out on those rocks. I'm bruised from head to toe. Here comes Watkins. But that's just, it's a side of the combat that we never hear about.
Right.
But to start the chapter that way.
Yeah. Well, that, like you said, at the beginning of each one of those chapters,
Yeah.
One of the things that I was trying to do, and I after rereading the book again a couple of weeks ago, because I haven't read it since I wrote it, right?
Right.
I was trying to put news headlines from home because there was a huge anti-war movement going on in the States.
Right.
And I don't know how your family was, whether they were supportive or not, but mine wasn't, okay? Well, that had an effect on the troops.
Sure.
And so I was trying to, I was trying to infuse, here's what's going on at home, and you're supposed, this is duty, honor, country stuff, right?
Right,
When you
absolutely.
go into the military. Well, the country isn't supporting you, okay, is the impression the press gave us.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's the purpose of the headlines at the
Sure.
beginning of each
I
chapter.
like that better than what I did, because I remember we came back from a target in November of 68, barely got out. In fact, there was one where we had the boot touch and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a Newsweek, Time, one of those,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a front page, like 150, 500,000 people, anti-war. I'm going,
Yeah.
WTF?
Yeah, exactly.
Have you haven't talked to the Congress I just talked to.
Yeah, no kidding.
And, of course, nobody talks about that there was some sort of communist infiltration at some levels that got a lot of students motivated
Yeah.
down that trail,
Yeah.
without ever really meeting a real socialist or a communist they want
right.
to control your life.
Yeah, exactly.
They don't like no First Amendment. or anything
Yeah,
else.
yeah.
But going into your chapter, we start off on a very serious note. My heart in my throat, emotions high. No. Oh, God. Not Harkness. MIA? When? And again, for our viewers and listeners, Harkness was flying Covey, just one of our stud Air Force Covey
Yeah.
pilots.
Yeah.
And numerous times he was there with you that day, flying Watkins and
Yeah.
Spider over and over, sortie after sortie.
Greg Harkness, yeah.
Absolutely. And so going into your book, on the 26th of November, he's MIA in Oscar 8, which, by the way, was the target of ST Alabama that day on October 5th.
Mm-hmm.
And as you so adequately call it, goddamn Oscar 8. I can't believe it. He joked about wanting to build a house and settle down to farm the plateau we rescued Alabama from in early October.
Yeah, it's a beautiful area.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That place has claimed more men than any other piece of ground in Laos. Pat Watkins is having difficulty holding back his emotions. The 26th, here we are on the brink of peace. The war being over, the Vietnamese government has agreed to join the Paris peace talks. The end is near. What happened, I ask? Harkness and First Lieutenant by the name of Shepard, Alan Shepard, the son of the astronaut? He was the observer. They headed out to do some work. Doesn't sound like a SOG mission. It wasn't. It was one of those Steel, Tiger, aerial road, and trail interdiction things they do. The job was to conduct a pre-dawn VR, visual reconnaissance, looking for truck traffic on highways 922, 219, and 92. The two of them flew out of Da Nang at 0300 hours, headed west to the target area. The Airborne Battlefield Command and Control Center said Covey 265, which was Harkness aircraft, and so that aircraft established radio contact once they were over the AO, and the order to initiate their mission was given. Pat shifts his eyes away from me. The word is they got caught in a flak trap. Harkness is without question the finest Covey pilot I've ever flown with, he mourns. If it weren't for Captain Greg Harkness, you or I wouldn't be standing here today, buddy. I'm going over to the Covey compound in Da Nang, and we'll be back in a couple of days. Have one for me. So the story goes on, losing him, but then a couple days later, there is another eldest son insertion planned, put into place. In your book, you talk about it forming up, but it also just gives the seriousness of the day. I think the one that we talk about in the book would happen on November 30th, 1968, but it wasn't it a day before that you, Tim Schaaf, John Peters, Rick Howard had volunteered to pull an eldest son mission.
Right.
With a King Bee.
Right.
So you would load it up with the NVA enemy equipment and rounds designed to explode when they use it.
Right.
And that mission, you guys were going to go do it. So you board up, they got pictures of you and the guys in the chopper heading to the target. At some point, whiskey x-ray, bad weather.
Yep.
You turn around and come back. So November 30th, a different group volunteers for the target.
Yep.
And I forget how we get into the story, but you're out there talking to one of the people about that mission, your mission the day before, and they're talking about, there's another one today. So and you ask casually, hey, who goes on this one? Well, the 1-0 is Major Samuel K. Tomey, First Lieutenant Raymond C. Stacks, Spec 5 Richard A. Fitz, Sergeant Arthur E. Bader, Spec 4 Gary LeBone, Staff Sergeant Klaus D. Schultz, and Spec 4 Michael Main, along with the Vietnamese helicopter pilots. So essentially, they went out, they were en route to the target, and you remember the detail, because were you still at the launch site when that went down?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what happened?
Well, we all got on board, and there were 2 choppers going out to bright light those guys, and we got turned back due to weather. And they had launched from Mylock, Kong Tree. Everybody was trying to bright light that area out in Ashow to get to see if there were any bodies or anything like that. And basically, what happened is they were flying out to Ashow to do the insertion, and they got hit by a rocket. And their ship was they were going to build a cache is what they were going to do, and the ship was full of mortar rounds, and that rocket ignited those mortar rounds and just blew them all to hell.
Yeah.
And so we were trying to, everybody was trying to get out there to see if we could recover bodies and stuff, or to see if there was any survivors, and nobody could get there. The weather closed in.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and at that time, our team was down TDY.
Yeah.
In fact, we were on a mission.
Yeah, it was very frustrating. When you go to try to do that, and Mother Nature screws with you. I mean, the NVA is bad enough, but when Mother Nature becomes a bitch, you just kind of you want to punch somebody in the nose.
Well, yeah, and we had that similar experience when I got back to Vietnam on my second tour. On November 3rd, RT Maryland was wiped out. Mm-hmm. The Americans were, not the Indige. Mm-hmm. Then 7 days later, it was at STS, or Oregon. I'm sorry, Oregon, with Stuber and oh God. Anyways, they got hit, overrun, and then we were going to try to run a bite light. We couldn't.
Right.
And at some point, I think you were able to get on the ground. Like a couple weeks later,
Yeah.
I had gone to Saigon. You
Right.
put together a bright light.
Right. Yeah, we went out there to their last known position and walked around out there for half a day searching. And we could find no blood, no equipment. It was like a pristine area.
Really?
Yeah, and we couldn't find anything.
So that's another one of those situations where you're delayed by Mother Nature.
Yeah.
Then there's rain.
That's
that
right.
Even if you go into the LZ,
Yeah.
who knows what was there?
That's right.
And true to form, those two, I really apologize for the second name, drawing a mental blank on it this time, but Suber was the other team member.
Yeah.
And they are two of the 50 Green Berets today that still remain on the MIA list
Yeah.
from the Secret War.
Yeah.
But, you mentioned that name, Zolonakis.
Zolonakis, yeah.
Yeah, I would just love to get back to your side, because this is one I haven't heard. And talk a little bit about you and him, or whatever that story was, because the first story was he had come in and trained you all, which, again, this happened when I was back at Fort Devens.
Yeah.
I left, but you were there when the
Right.
Frenchman was on your team.
Right.
You guys were just running some outstanding missions.
Right. So he trained up myself, Dave Maurer, and
He was from RT, Louisiana.
Yep, and a couple other 1-0s on wiretap equipment, right? Well, and this was down in Da Nang when this happened.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
You're at CCN now.
Yeah. So if you remember at Fubai, the wiretap equipment came in a suitcase. I mean, a big metal suitcase. I mean, it was a humongous damn thing with a battery life of about 2 hours, right? And the thing weighed like 100 pounds. I swear to God. No, so that we didn't do any wiretaps using that.
See, and let me interrupt you for a second,
Yeah.
because the one that we carried a couple of times was just a cassette player.
It was a Panasonic cassette player.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. And so basically there were. You want me to go into any of the detail?
Oh, yeah, I
Okay.
love it.
So
please.
So
this is what our viewers love.
Oh yeah.
The
yeah.
minutia, the detail.
Yeah. So this we had the Panasonic cassette that you could hook up a PRC. It had a battery pack to it that was regular cassette player stuff that would play for a couple hours, but it had you could hook up a PRC 25 battery to it,
okay.
and the thing would run for like 20 hours. Okay.
Yeah.
And later on, they even improved the battery pack for it, and it would run for days. And they
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. Then what they did, further improvements were that they put something in it that would actually transmit.
Really?
Yeah, so they gave us these little transmitters that we would go out and place in the ground, that we'd bury them, and they had like a blade of grass antenna, so you couldn't tell when you were
Right.
walking around, right? And so we'd salt these things up as high as we could, so, to get the
Sure.
signal out of the jungle, right? And then the wiretaps themselves. So there's 3 basic kind of wiretaps that you can do. The first one, which I'll explain, is one we never used, and the reason for that, it just doesn't work in the jungle. It's an electromagnetic tap that it's got the wires coming off of it, and it opens up, and where you've got a coax cable with several communication lines going in it,
Right.
you clip this thing on the outside, and it will collect all of the information from each one of those communication sources and feed it back to a computer, which they sort out the communications, and they can gather all the information.
This is 1969.
This is 1969, right?
Yeah.
And they'd sort all that stuff out. Well, so what and that's called a soft tap.
Okay.
Okay, electromagnetic soft tap. Then there were hard taps, and the most primary basic tap was just the wire, which looked like a piece of cobweb, but had a tensile strength of about 100 pounds. Okay, came on a spool like a bobbin your mother used in her sewing machine.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And here. let me explain the communication lines. First of all,
Please.
when you say wiretap, most people think that you're going to have to climb up a pole.
Well, we did with Sal on
Okay.
one mission.
Well, all the wire communication lines I saw,
Yeah.
the poles were no higher than 6 feet.
Right.
They had a cross arm on them. There were no insulators. There were just 2 wooden pegs on either
Right.
side.
That's right. Ours were. They weren't
Yeah.
that tall. You're
Yeah,
right. So,
yeah.
okay.
Okay, and the wires weren't shielded in any way. The wire was coated like, I'm going to say, like a shellac kind of
Yeah.
material, that you take a piece of sandpaper or a knife and you scrape off that stuff, and you wrap this wire around it, and then you run that, and you do that where you've got the pole,
Right.
and the wire's coming out about 5 feet away. You install that tap, you spin it along, and you can't see it. Okay, if you're just casually walking by.
Yeah, in our case, Sal would even have it so when he brought the wire down,
That's what. So
he would cover it with mud so people couldn't see it from the trail.
Well, they had an improvement on that.
Really?
Yeah, you take that wire, which is that bobbin, and
Yeah.
we put it into a device that looks like a box cutter, and you insert the blade into the pole, and you just run that blade down, and it lays that wire into the pole, and the wood just covers that all up, and you run it down, and you put your Panasonic recorder or whatever device you were using
Yeah.
in there, right?
Yeah.
And then you put out your transmission stuff. The other kind of wiretap, which we rarely use because we never saw shielded wire, was it was a probe that if like your housing wire today has a plastic coating on it.
It had like a sharp end. It would
Yeah, it had a
stick
sharp
in.
end, and so you insert
remember
it.
those,
Yeah,
yeah.
and then you wrap it around.
Yeah.
And then you that's how you do that tap. So those are the 3 basic taps and the equipment and all of this kind of stuff. So Zolonakis shows up, he trains us on this stuff. We get ready to go out on this mission, and this was a multi-day mission, supposedly, right?
Uh-huh.
And you're going in heavy. So the wiretap gear winds up in one of the Indige rucksacks. Okay, because,
Right.
And so it comes time we go out, and he had it in his rucksack like for a couple of days in his hooch, over in where the Indige slept. And you could hear him playing cassette tapes on these things, right? And I'm going, oh God, I wish these guys wouldn't do this shit, Look, this is a specialized piece of equipment. Stop it, knock that shit off, right? So we get out in the field, we do this wiretap, and we install it, and we go up and we sit in the bushes, and we watch this guy who checks the lines walk by a couple times, once up, one back, and all this kind of stuff. And finally, after a couple hours, we go out, we deinstall the wiretap, we take it back, and I handed the tape to the Intel guys, and they shipped it off to Saigon.
Yeah.
Next thing I know, I'm called into the company commander's office, and he said, "You're fired." I said, "What?"
Kumbiek?
"Yeah." He said, "And I'm putting you on special assignment. I'm sending your dumb ass to Quezon up on the mountain, right?"
Right. They're
Yeah.
putting a new radio relay site
Yeah.
that they're doing with the NSA
Yeah.
through ASA.
Yeah, and he said, "For the rest of your tour, that's where you're going to be, right? You are friggin' fired." And Idaho team, we're probably going to disband Idaho. Right?
Oh my God!
Right?
Yeah.
So I'm up on Quezon, and I'm up there for like a week or so.
That long?
Oh yeah, it was a while, and I'm thinking, Jesus, what in the hell happened, right?
Yeah.
So finally one day this King Bee comes in, and I'm thinking it's a supply chopper, and the King Bee lands, and there's this NCO in the door of the King Bee, and he looks at me, and he come here, he says, get your gear and get on the King Bee, right? So I go back to camp, and I can't remember who the camp commander was at the time, and he said,
Iceland may have still been CO.
Your butt has just been saved. I said, what? Yeah, he said, we sent Dave Maurer out to do your job, and Dave Maurer came back, and he said, you've been exonerated. I go, what the hell? So I find out that what happened was the NVA, from communication bunker to communications bunker, they had loudspeakers outside because the combo bunkers were in the bin trams, right?
Right.
The rest sites. And they had these loudspeakers, and they were playing Beatles music for 2,000 miles down the Ho Chi Minh Trail.
No.
Yeah, and the NVA are listening to the Beatles, and that's what I recorded on this wiretap, right? Saigon thought, and I thought that the team had screwed up. Well, Maurer sat there with a set of headphones and went, "Hey, it's a bad day's night," and so he came back and said, "Hey, here's what these guys are doing," right? And that's how we came back together as a team.
Oh my God, the Beatles of all
The
things.
Beatles, it was their fault.
Now, speaking of Zolonakis, one of the things that we covered, we did a story with the Frenchman and Gunther Wald when they were on RT Virginia.
Yeah,
In '69. They ran the mission in to blow up one of the fuel dumps.
yeah,
Now, again, I never knew that you may have done something like that
yeah.
until we were at a reunion like 4 or 5 years ago
Right.
on our third or fourth bottle of wine.
Yeah,
And somehow
yeah.
the top, because and you said, the Frenchman goes, "Yeah, we did blah, blah, I remember that one." You go, "Yeah, we did one of those." Excuse me?
Yeah.
Could you tell me a little bit about
Yeah.
blowing up the NVA fuel dump?
So
In
what?
your spare time.
Yeah. So what happened was Letourneau, when he was on Virginia, excuse
Yeah,
me,
that's right.
they
Gunther T. Wald was the 1-0.
exactly, and they got down to this river, and what they observed was oil and gas drums floating down this river, and that's how they were rather than on the trail was being heavily bombed at the time,
Sure.
and they weren't able to get gas and oil for their trucks.
And they're starting the fuel lines,
Yeah,
which we did
and
some
they were
missions
trying.
on.
We heard they were trying to build a fuel line, but they were actually floating this stuff down this river,
Right.
and then collecting it and then walking it through the jungle on bikes and stuff, right? So Zolonakis shows up, and he says we have to get back out there and we have to interdict this river supply line, and we're going, well, how you're thinking. There's a lot of fuel drums and stuff going down. How the hell are you going to interdict? A team isn't going to do that. And he goes, "Oh yeah, he says, "I'm going to show you how we're going to do it." So he had this device that was made out of steel. It was a steel tube with a brass ring on it that you could set 8 hours, 24 hours a week. 30 days,
That
right?
long, huh?
Yeah. So this is brass
Right.
on the steel with this indicator thing on the top of it.
So it's like a tubular device, but it's loaded with explosives with the timer on the
Yeah,
top.
yeah,
And you can install that where?
yeah. So the other end of it had a bung on it, which is what you unscrew on a barrel, right?
Like an oil drum, a
Like
55
on an oil
gallon.
drum, right? So he gave us a bung wrench, and each one of us, we went in with 12 guys, and each one of us carried 10.
Really?
Each one of us carried 10 of these things. Whoa. And we waded out into that. We found a place in a deep valley where we knew nobody was going to be.
We're deep in Laos now.
Yeah. Well, we actually went to Udorn, Thailand, and came in on Jolly Green and walked 20 miles to get there. It took us 3 days to get to
Oh,
the
my
friggin'
God.
place. And we got down in there. There was a little indentation in the bank, kind of like a cave that we set up house in and stuff like this. And
Really?
Yeah. And we were cooking meals, C4 and all that kind of stuff in there. And
In Laos.
Yeah. What the hell? There was nobody. There was nobody where we were.
Yeah, you're far west beyond our normal
Yeah,
area of operations for the
ex-
Ho Chi Minh Trail.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So initially we strung this net across there, and there were just too many drums. They broke the net, but we started hauling drums out and taking unscrewing the bung, and we went to try to set these things.
Yeah.
Right? Well, you ever heard the term freeze the balls off a brass monkey?
I did.
And you know what it means?
Well, in the old days, it's from the brass balls that roll around the deck of the ship.
Exactly.
Yes.
So the monkey, which sat on the deck, was made out of iron, or made out of brass. Excuse me. And the cannonballs were made out of iron.
Yeah.
So in bad weather, the brass would shrink, and this pyramid of iron balls would roll around on the deck, breaking legs and destroying ship decks. Right. Well, that's exactly what happened here.
No.
The brass shrunk, and we couldn't set it for variable time. So we just jury-rigged them and turned them on and screwed them in, right? And put the drums back in the river.
Yeah, yeah.
And after that, we hiked back out and got picked up and went home. And for months, down the Ho Chi Minh Trail at these truck parks, there oil and gas was blowing up everywhere. And if you tried to unscrew those bungs, they blew up also.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. So they went off when we had them set, and they also, if they tried to look and see, they would go off. So we slowed them down for a long, long time.
So you ran that one after the Frenchman did his with the RT Virginia.
Well, it was him.
That was the prototype.
It was him. Those guys discovering that got the NSA going, okay, how do we do this, right? And we volunteered to do it.
But think you could launch in from Thailand.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
and then set up an RON, just go ahead and cook?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was like being on vacation. You got to swim, Freeze your butt off is what you...
Yeah, well, that too.
Yeah, yeah.
So was there any other Zola and Naka story? Because there's two things on the wiretaps. Just for we were told always wiretap if you can't hear anything, because the CIA was told
absolutely. Well, yeah,
they'd amplify it.
Yeah, so if you install a wiretap and you don't hear anything, right?
Yeah,
you reach in your rucksack and you pull out another little device called a telephone line analyzer, and you hook it up, and you wind it up, and you push the button, and it sends the signal down the line, right?
No.
Yeah, and so it rings up the commo bunkers, and you sit there looking at it. When the guy answers the phone down here, and there's an arrow that says he's down there, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So you look at that, and he says, oh, this guy's 500 feet away, and this guy is talking to this guy, and he's 750 feet away, whatever it is, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So you know where you are on the map, right? So you just plot that stuff out on the map and feed it to the Air Force, and they bomb the crap out of their telephone line analyzer with a ringback device is what it was called. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, so any other tricks from Zolonakis and the boys?
No.
Because I remember the one time you and I were down in Saigon and we met with some of the CIA guys.
Yeah.
On one hand, we met some guys that weren't what I would call would be the creme de la creme.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, one of the brightest men I've ever met. There was a guy with blonde hair, but whenever we talked to him, he was always 3 or 4 sentences ahead of us.
Yeah, so he was the guy. I did a thing, this was about 4 months before I left on the second tour there, that I ran 3 what they called, for them, this was outside of SOG stuff, right?
Right.
And they were called 2 in, 1 out, and it's a stay-behind mission.
Right.
And we would go in at last light and go to, the object was to put a battery in, remember aqua buoy sensors that they used to drop?
Yeah.
Well, we'd change the batteries on the aqua buoy sensor, and the guy that I was with was an NVA POW.
Really?
3 times, yeah. And
3 times?
Yeah, and believe me, I did. It scared the shit out of me. Okay.
Oh yeah.
And his job after we got done doing that was to just walk off into the bushes and repatriate himself. Okay, and my job was to go home.
Whoa.
Yeah. But that was nerve-wracking. I'd had enough by that time, okay? And I didn't like standing next to a guy dressed in full NVA uniform with all his weapons and crap.
Well, yeah, you also had a very bad experience with an all NVA Chuhoi team at Da Nang,
Yeah.
as I recall.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Ooh, yeah.
Somewhere
Yeah.
in between your time with Alabama and Idaho and other stuff, somebody thought it'd be a good idea for you to be a 1-0 of a Chuhoi team.
Yes,
which
which
were NVA
was
that
Cobra,
allegedly converted.
Cobra team.
Yes.
Yeah, and
Not the one from,
oh yeah,
it was Eddington's team?
it was Eddington's team. Yeah, yeah.
Well, Eddington, just for our listeners, was
Patrick J. Eddington.
Patrick J. Eddington, who was he had the Asian look.
Yeah.
Tall.
Well, I can't remember. I think his mother was Asian and his father was Irish or something.
Right,
like
something
that.
like that.
Yeah.
Right, with a name like that. But
Yeah.
and he just, because of his looks, his teams could walk up and down the trail.
Yeah. When they went to the field, they dressed in NVA gear.
Right.
Yeah. In fact, I think I sent you that picture of them all outside their hooch with all their gear on. Yeah.
It's just a great. He had, So at some point, his time on the team expired, and you wound up
Right.
with Cobra.
I wound up with Cobra. Yeah.
Whoa.
For about a month, and they refused to assimilate. Absolutely refused. I mean, they told me if we went to the field, I wasn't going to come back out of there alive. So
So you had an incident with them down the firing range one day.
yeah. And so they all got sent back to the POW camp.
Okay. So, oh my God.
Yeah.
So, if you could just take us through that a little bit, because I'd never heard that side of the story. Because you were at the range.
Yeah.
At some point, they said, we're not going to do this anymore."
Right.
And you said, "Well, we're going to talk about this." What happened?
They all pointed their guns at me and said, "You aren't the team leader." And they had their own team leader. Yeah, and they were going to grease me right there on the spot.
How'd you get out of being greased?
I got in the cab of the truck and drove back home. Said, "Fuck this! I'm not doing this shit. These guys are done." Okay.
Whoa.
Because they're not going to let any American take control of them. That's why Eddington really didn't do. Remember the Mujia Pass
Oh, of course.
thing? Yeah. Well, that's why that really never happened. Was because of that team.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow. So, how did you aid and abet the apprehension of said same team?
Oh, it was easy. They all lived in this building up by headquarters, which was kind of a conference room kind of thing, is where they lived. And they kept them apart and separate from the other indige in the camp.
Mm-hmm.
And we landed. I went in and reported out. They put guards around it, and the next day the POW camp guys showed up and
Took them away.
Took them away. Wow. Yeah.
Just another day, huh?
Yeah.
Well, I think for this point in time, sir, we're getting close to wrapping up here.
Okay.
And if you don't mind, as Jocko would say, I'd like to get you back here right away.
Is that the way he talks?
Oh, he's much more pronounced.
Is he?
And,
Okay.
Yeah. A leadership. He has better leadership qualities than I.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'd like to do that.
All right.
So what I'd like to do is to close up here, and then again to remind everyone, Whiskey Foxtrot Tango.
How about Whiskey Tango Foxtrot?
Are you sure?
Yeah, look at the cover.
Oh, that's what it is.
Yeah, see?
That's the test. and you
I can
passed it.
spell.
With that thought in mind, buy it. It's available at bookstores everywhere. No, not necessarily, but online for sure.
Yeah,
Just go to
Amazon's
Amazon.
got it.
Indeed,
Yeah.
and it's got now over 1,000 reviews
That's right.
from people that have liked the book.
Yeah.
So if you haven't already done so, please do so. 4th of July is coming up, a perfect parent gift for people to want to learn a little bit about the war. With all the non-history being taught in America's schools today, perhaps this would be a good time to venture down that path. So at this point, I'd like to, today we'd like to thank our military, the Border Patrol, and the first responders, those who have defend our country and serve it. And we thank the men and women who served in the years past, men like Lynne M. Black Jr., who served our country with great valor. We also remember and salute the men and the women who were not able to return. And as we sign off, I wanted to remind our viewers that if you haven't seen them yet, I suggest going to Jocko podcast number 247, where we reviewed this book with Jocko, because there's many fans. There's moments, we had these Jocko moments in his review of the book. And then also Jocko podcast number 258, where Jocko and I interviewed Cowboy Doan Khan, the first, the one, and the only. It's an amazing interview, and you get a look at a man. If nothing else, scroll to the last 5 minutes. You hear a guy who grew up in Vietnam. His parents left the communists to eventually lands in America with an amazing story. And also, we could this podcast would not be possible without the support of Jocko Willing Productions, his amazing staff led by Echo Charles. And with that, we would like to close out, and we thank all the military personnel out there, particularly during these troubled times, who defend our country. With that, God bless America.